The Nice House on the Lake, another book from James Tynion, because he just can't help himself, can he? He's just gotta put his stamp on everything while he can. I can't blame the guy, but it's like, hey, you have earned the right to take a break. You have been making a lot of books every week. Take a second for yourself, man. Have a moment, have a breather, and then come back to comics. But you know what? It's fun. I really enjoyed the first issue of this book. This one picked up in an interesting place. Again, it feels like it's building towards like that nail drop moment where everything's just going to like shatter and break free, which I'm okay with because if we're building up this tension, I think it's doing a pretty good job. Again, this issue opens up with like the character who we see in the house in the future where it's like post-apocalyptic. We see this time it's Rick. I believe, is he the comedian? I can't remember. Look, they got a bunch of symbols, and I'm looking at it. Is he the musician? I think he's the musician. That makes sense because he's playing the piano, so... I mean, he's in the future. He's like, everything went to shit. It's really weird. We see like a flashback to him actually talking to Walter, and like when they were like kids, and it's like looking at the future and what's everything's going to hold. And you know, I'm going to just make an inquiry here. I think... this is an interesting idea to look into because I could see Walter kind of being like... James putting himself in this book as this guy who's worried about the future and trying to keep all of his friends close to him. And he's like, I want to, like, if something happens, my friends have been the ones that were always there for me. I want to preserve that relationship. Because, you know, James likes to put himself in his books. And something we notice is all the main characters in some of his other stories, like Something is Killing the Children, like Department of Truth, all these main characters have glasses. They all play with this idea of homosexuality or experimenting in your sexuality. And I know that's something James wants to put forward in his books, which I enjoy seeing. But the characters that he always represents as himself wear glasses. And in this flashback, we see Walter has that idea about him, which makes me lead to believe I could see this being like an analog story for James saying, like, I want to preserve my friends and I want to preserve the thing that got me through my life and helped me through all these hard times. So... if that's the case, I think that's really incredible to see. So I'm just going to assume, I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm going to look at it like James is putting himself in the shoes of Walter in this situation, which it works, man. I think that's kind of cool. And another thing throughout this book that we kind of explored in the last like issue, we're talking about like the emails and stuff. This time we see like surveillance footage and we get like a written word typed out about like what people said on like the reports and stuff. And it's kind of interesting. So we wake up and everyone's just trying to get their life back on track. You know, like Rick is kind of just like out of it a little bit. He's with his lady and she's like, I can't remember the names of everyone. I think this is Naya or Sarah. It's one of the two. There's so many of them. And like, we're just getting used to the names. So as we go further along, things will start to make sense. But Rick's with his woman. He starts to like get himself together and he's kind of just like haunted by this vision of Walter. Like every time he sees Walter or anything, all he sees is like the disgruntled person that they kind of like blew up in the last issue, and he sees that haunted, twisted version of him, which is kind of interesting, a very fantastical idea. We also get a page dedicated to the itinerary that Walter designed. So like on Mondays, this is the activity we're doing. On Tuesdays, we're doing all this stuff. And again, we're building up this idea that Walter wants to preserve his friendships, which I think is a very interesting thing to see. We also cut to Ryan, and Ryan's talking to Ronnie and Molly, and basically they're just trying to figure out, like, this is really weird. And it's kind of interesting. We learn a lot of things, you know, people like Walter and Sam and Norm. Norm is the transitioned version of Nora, and we're just seeing, like, okay, these people all knew Walter from high school, from, like, growing up with him, except for Ryan, and Ryan's trying to figure out why she is here, what it is that made her part of this team, part of this group. Because she only knew him a few years ago, and it wasn't even that long. So there's something about her that Ryan must have saw. So we just kind of like see where that's conversation going. We cut to the other room. Everyone's trying to figure everything out, like what's going on. And like we see that Walter brings them some good bagels from New York, even though they're in Wisconsin, and nobody can figure out what that has to do with anything. And basically, everyone's slowly breaking down. Like it's a pretty shitty situation, but Rick, for some reason, is trying to keep his head clear. We see Sarah heads out of the room. She wants to go smoke a cigarette, and that's where she runs into Nora. And again, Nora, another character I can see a lot of writers like putting themselves in those shoes, because Nora is just like this is all bullshit anyways. Whatever, let's just figure shit out. I like Nora as a character. I think they are very fun, and she's a very complex character. So her and Sarah just kind of like sit down and figure everything out, and basically Nora is just like, if you run out of cigarettes, it's probably going to come to this thing where Walter's going to restock it. He's trying to keep us here to be happy, so you run out of it, you'll probably get some more of them. Maybe we'll find like he grows his own tobacco and we'll be able to start smoking it in pipes. Basically that kind of thing. Sarah thinks that she's joking, but of course she's not. So then it's like, okay, well, if you think that Walter is building all this stuff to keep us here, maybe we should go explore the sites a little bit and see what's actually going on. Maybe we can find the secret stash. So we cut in, and Samuel, I think is the name of this man, he wants to talk to everybody. He's like, I found something outside I think everybody should see. So they're going to go check it out, but Naya and Rick kind of stay back, and they're going to go do something else. So we cut back to the things with Nora and Sarah. They're just investigating some stuff. They find like a spa area where they got like a sensory deprivation tank, and they found like this green room and all this stuff. And then they find like a movie theater that actually looks like a movie theater. Then they find like this bookshelf, and they're looking through all these books. And James, you can't help yourself, can you? It feels like every comic book writer today needs to put some comic books in their comic book. So we see that Nora finds like a shelf of old comic books of stuff that, you know, Walter wanted them to read when they were in like high school and like when they were teenagers. And of course there's the classics like Sandman, of course, which you have to. That whole generation of writers, you know the one I'm talking about. They're all inspired by Neil Gaiman. There's a couple Neil Gaiman books on the shelves. There's also things like Wizard of Oz and, you know, what are some of the other ones here? I can't remember, but Dune, I think, is one of the books. It makes sense. And it's kind of funny. It's just interesting stuff. Yeah, there's a book about the conspiracy against the human race, which Tynion, you're already dealing with that in Department of Truth. So interesting stuff. So basically it's like all this stuff that Walter knows his friends are going to be interested in, trying to keep them here to make them stay. And we cut to outside where the group is gathering, and Sam is showing them like this weird device as he was checking the perimeter, like following the invisible gate. He found this device, like a weird statue that looks like a frowny face in a sense, and he's like, you can like touch it, and when you touch it, it shows you your home and what's left of it. So nobody really believes what that is. So one of the women goes up to touch it, and when she does, she sees the horrific violence happening outside of her home city, all these people being morphed and killed, and she just breaks down, and it's just a terrible sight to see. And I'm like, damn, Tynion, you really go for the graphic horror stuff in this book. I love it. So Naya and Rick are just kind of sitting down, and Rick's trying to be like, okay, I know what Walter's doing here, and I know he loved us and he loves us still, and everything about this is just freaking me out, and everything's bad, and I feel like for the sake of us being alive, we should find some like normative things to do, where it's, even if it's just like following the itinerary that Walter made, it's just something like having dinner every night as a group that'll keep us together and functioning. We should try to make the most out of this situation. And he's like, I don't know if it's possible, but we should at least try. And as he's saying those stuff, like we should at least try, and if we don't, I'm sure there's another plan for him. We see that Sarah and Nora stumble onto an armory full of explosives and firearms. And as we turn back, we see Walter staring at Rick as his disgusted form is blown up. And that is where the issue ends. And I'm just like, this is good, man. How do you find the time to consistently write a bunch of good shit, dude? Like, I've been struggling just to, like, get one thing, to find the time for one thing. I know it's not, like, my permanent job, but I'm like, dude, this is insanely good. Good for you, dude. This is amazing. This book is just so good. It's so fascinating. The characters are getting there. The story is coming along in a slow way. And I feel like as soon as we get to like that halfway point and like the pin drops and we figure out what's actually happening here, it's going to be a really good read. It's very classic Vertigo, which I know is something he likes to go for in his writing. I just really enjoy what this book has to say. The art is really fun. The writing is really fun. It's just a unique take on the horror story, showing you what you would do to keep your friends alive. And I think that's a really fun story to explore in a setting we're not familiar with. So good work, dude. Just knocking it out of the park on every gate. So, The Nice House on the Lake, issue number 2, I am going to give an 8 out of 10. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.